All right, so have you ever pictured yourself like standing on the deck of a cruise ship, with the ocean breeze and the sun on your face, but you're also like sharing your expertise with an audience of eager listeners?
Pretty cool thought, right?
It really is like combining the thrill of travel with the joy of public speaking.
I know, and that's exactly what we're diving into. Today, we're going to be looking at the Cruise Speakers Association.
The CSA.
Yeah, exactly. And we have some really interesting information to work with. We got excerpts from their website and even a letter they send out to potential members.
Cool. So what's the mission here? Are we trying to figure out if this is a legit thing? Is this something people should actually look into?
Well, I think our main goal is to see if this could be a good fit for public speakers who love to cruise. Is it a way to actually make money or at least get some heavily discounted travel while doing what they love?
Right. So it's not just about free cruises.
No, not at all. It's more about finding a unique and potentially rewarding path for your speaking career.
Got it. So first things first, who exactly is the Cruise Speakers Association?
Well, based on their website, they call themselves the preeminent source of quality speakers and artists to the cruise industry.
Preeminent. That's a pretty bold claim.
It is. It definitely suggests they see themselves at the top of the game.
So they're like the go-to agency for cruise lines looking for entertainment.
That's the idea. They connect cruise lines with engaging presenters to enhance the whole passenger experience.
And keep those passengers coming back for more, I bet.
Exactly. They even say their mission is to provide hassle-free, welcomed presenters, people who deliver great content but also fit in seamlessly with the ship's operations.
Makes sense. I mean, you don't want a speaker who's going to cause problems or turn off the guests.
Exactly. And it's not just about the talks themselves. They want someone who contributes positively to the overall passenger satisfaction.
So it's about being a good ambassador for the cruise line as well.
Absolutely. Now, they also mentioned representing craft associates and art associates.
So like artisans and people who do demonstrations.
Yeah, exactly. It seems like they cover a pretty wide range of talent, all aimed at making the cruise experience richer.
And they're very clear about wanting the best of the best. They talk about recruiting training and encouraging only the top talent.
Right. They're not just letting anyone on board. They want to maintain a certain standard.
So for a public speaker who also loves to cruise, why should they even bother with the CSA? What's the appeal?
Well, that's where this letter comes in. It does a really great job of comparing traditional speaking gigs with the cruise speaking world.
Okay, so let's break that down. Traditional speaking, you fly in, you give your talk, maybe answer a few questions, and then you're off to the next city.
Yeah, often by yourself, which can get pretty lonely.
And the CSA is offering something different,
Very different. First of all, they emphasize the opportunity to travel with a partner.
which is huge for a lot of people.
Right. And then there's this amazing statistic that say you'll spend 90% of your time on vacation.
90%. Wow. So how does that actually work? Are you really off duty that much?
Well, outside of your scheduled presentations, you're basically free to enjoy the cruise. Just like any other passenger, you can explore the ship, relax by the pool, go on shore excursions, the whole nine yards.
So it's like a working vacation.
Exactly. And the letter really highlights that sense of community. You're not just in and out. You're part of the ship's life.
And your interactions with the audience aren't limited to just the Q&A after your talk.
Right. You could be chatting with people by the buffet or on a shore excursion. It's a much more organic and ongoing connection.
And the presentation style itself sounds a bit different too, and more relaxed and informal.
Yeah, it's still professional, of course, but the atmosphere is more laid back.
So less pressure, maybe?
Perhaps, and let's not forget the amenities. You're not stuck in a hotel room. You have access to everything the ship has to offer. Pools, gyms, restaurants, shows the works.
Plus, you get to see all these amazing destinations.
Right, and the letter really emphasizes the emotional rewards of this kind of speaking. You're not just informing people, you're contributing to their vacation experience.
It's like you're adding to their enjoyment and making their trip more memorable.
Exactly. They even say it can be a life-changing experience.
Wow, that's a pretty powerful statement.
It is, but let's get real for a second. What about the money everyone wants to know? Do you actually get paid to do this, or is it all about free cruises?
Right, because let's be honest, a lot of people probably think this is too good to be true.
And they'd be partially, right? The letter is very upfront about the financial realities while they say there might be some rare exceptions. Don't expect to be speaking and cruising for free.
So no getting rich quick schemes here.
No, but they do offer a deeply discounted rate, often 75% off or more.
Okay, so that's still pretty significant.
It is. It makes cruising much more accessible, but it's not a completely free ride.
And they actually address that common misconception head on. They mention the joke among professional speakers about wanting to cruise but not being able to afford it because of the travel time.
Right. This model kind of flips that on its head. You're not getting paid a huge fee, but you're getting incredible travel opportunities at a fraction of the cost.
So it's a trade-off, but for the right person, it could be a really appealing one.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of travel, let's talk logistics, because even though it's a cruise, there are still some practicalities to consider.
Yeah, like how do you get to the ship in the first place? Do they cover airfare?
Well, typically no airfare is not included unless it's one of those really long transatlantic voyages.
Okay, so that's an added expense.
Right, but they do mention that cruise lines sometimes offer discounted rates, or what they call maritime fares.
Maritime fares, what are those?
Well, basically, they're special discounted airfares that are sometimes available for people working with the cruise lines, but the availability and the exact discount can vary.
So it's worth looking into, but don't bank on it.
Exactly, and once you arrive at the departure city, they strongly recommend getting there at least 2 days before you're sailing.
That's smart. Gives you some wiggle room in case of flight delays or anything unexpected.
Right, you don't want to miss the boat, literally.
Exactly. And once you're on board, where do you actually stay? What kind of accommodations can a speaker expect?
It can vary depending on the specific contract. And the ship itself, they mention possibilities like inside cabins, officer cabins, or even balcony cabins.
So a range of options.
Yeah, but no matter what they say, you'll have full service and amenities.
So you're not roughing it.
Not at all. But they do mention that crew quarters can sometimes be a bit different than passenger cabins, maybe narrower hallways or service elevators.
So a bit of a behind the scenes glimpse.
Exactly. And in terms of the overall cruise life experience for a speaker, they say it's like getting the best of both worlds.
Because you get the passenger amenities, but you're also part of the ship's team in a way.
Right. You have access to all the fun stuff, but you also get to experience the inner workings of the cruise.
Sounds pretty cool, but what about the actual speaking gig? What are the expectations for a cruise speaker, both on stage and off?
Okay, so on stage, they really emphasize the need for engaging visuals, a strong delivery style, and captivating stories. They recommend using lots of images, maybe some video clips, and making sure your content is really interesting and keeps people hooked.
Basically, you want to be entertaining and informative.
Exactly, and they give a specific time frame for the presentations, 45 to 60 minutes, with about 40 minutes for the main content and 5 minutes for questions.
So you have to be mindful of the time.
Right, and they have one really important piece of advice. They say, never end your presentation with open-ended questions.
Oh, that's interesting. Why is that?
Well, they want you to finish on a strong positive note, so they suggest wrapping up with a clear conclusion or even a final video.
Makes sense. You don't want people leaving with unanswered questions or a sense of uncertainty.
Right, and of course, PowerPoint is the preferred format with a backup USB drive just in case.
Always good to be prepared.
Absolutely. Now, offstage, your conduct is just as important as your presentation. They really stress the fact that you're constantly being observed by both passengers and crew.
So no letting loose too much.
Well, you want to be a good ambassador for yourself. And the cruise line, they specifically say to avoid talking about politics or religion and to never complain.
So basically be professional and positive at all times.
Right. They even suggest dressing more formally than the average passenger suit and tie for men, professional attire for women.
So they want their speakers to project a certain image.
Definitely one of expertise and respectability, and they do offer training resources on how to tailor your presentations for cruise audiences, which is really helpful.
That's great. So for someone who's thinking this sounds amazing, how do they actually get started with the CSA?
Okay, so the first step is to become a member. Once you're in, you'll start getting notifications about upcoming sailings that need speakers.
And then you can apply for any that seem like a good fit.
Exactly. The CSA handles all the contracts and logistics, so you don't have to worry about that.
That's nice. It streamlines the whole process.
Right, and they do mention that you'll usually have an interview and you'll need to provide professional references as part of the application.
So they do vet their speakers.
Definitely, but they say you can become a member within about 2 weeks of submitting everything, which is pretty fast.
And what about the cost? What are the fees involved?
There's a one-time lifetime membership fee of $280.
Not bad for lifetime access.
Right, and then for each speaking contract that you accept, there's a daily fee of $65, which covers both you and your partner if you're bringing one.
So pretty straightforward and transparent.
Yeah, and someone might be wondering, why bother with the CSA at all? Why not just approach cruise lines directly?
That's a good question.
And they address it head on. They basically say that they're essential for navigating the cruise industry effectively.
So they're like the gatekeepers in a way.
Yeah, they have the relationships and the expertise to connect you with the right opportunities, and they increase your chances of success compared to going it alone.
Okay, so they're worth the membership fee.
That's their argument. And what about bringing family members other than a partner? Is that allowed?
Yeah, because a lot of people might be wondering about that.
They say it is allowed, but there are some limitations. Crew cabins are usually for 2 people max, and sometimes bookings are made on short notice, so you might have to purchase a separate passenger cabin for your family, which could get pricey.
So something to keep in mind.
Once you're on board, are there any restrictions for speakers? Like, can you do everything a regular passenger can? For the most part, yes, you have access to most of the ship's amenities, restaurants, shows, the gym, all that. but they do mention a couple of specific restrictions. You can't gamble or play bingo.
Ah, bummer.
And they advise being careful about drinking too much in public, just maintain that professional image.
Right, because you're representing the CSA as well.
Exactly. And they really wrap up the letter by emphasizing the importance of having a genuine passion for both cruising and public speaking.
So it's not just about the perks, it's about loving what you do.
Right. They're looking for people who are truly enthusiastic about sharing their knowledge and experiences with others.
Makes sense. So to sum it all up for our listeners, if you're a good public speaker and you love to cruise, the Cruise Speakers Association could be a really unique opportunity for you.
Yeah, it's not about getting rich or getting free cruises, but it is about combining your passion with travel and potentially creating a really fulfilling experience.
You get to see amazing places, meet interesting people, and share your expertise all at a discounted rate.
Plus, there's that potential for it to be life-changing, as they say.
So it's definitely worth considering. But now here's the big question for you listening. Does this really resonate with you? Could you see yourself giving talks on a cruise ship?
What unique stories or insights could you offer to a captive audience of fellow travelers?
And maybe even more importantly, could you see yourself thriving in that kind of environment?
It's a pretty exciting thought, isn't it?
It really is. So if any of this has piqued your interest, I'd encourage you to check out the Cruise Speakers Association website, do some research, and see if it might be the right fit for you.
Think about your speaking topics, see how you could adapt them for a cruise setting, and maybe even start picturing yourself on that stage with the ocean as your backdrop.
Who knows, this could be the start of an amazing adventure.
And that's a wrap for today's Deep Dive.
Until next time, happy cruising, everyone.
And happy speaking, too.